Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast. Super excited to talk to Ford Saeks today about his vast career and all of the wonderful things that he's done. And let me just tell you guys, he is in the Speaker Hall of Fame. Okay, so we are sitting amongst giants today and super excited to have him. So welcome to Speak Your Way to Cash, Ford.
I'm happy to be here and happy to be here for your listeners and viewers.
Absolutely. And how would you describe what you do?
Well, the first question I tell people is, because of the content of your podcast, is, what is your identity? Are you a speaker, author, trainer, consultant, coach, facilitator, influencer? Well, you could be all those things, but really what I want to answer the question by saying is I'm a business growth accelerator. So I really help people grow their business. Now, speaking, training, coaching, consulting, products, books, learning management systems, all of those things, they're just delivery methods. So while we're on a podcast talking about how you can speak your way to cash, which is huge, and I love your show, I just want you. I don't think of myself as a speaker unless, of course, it's to a meeting planner, right? You want to be known as for what you do. So I'm a business growth accelerator. That's really what I do. I help people make more money and get more leads and get more sales.
Okay, awesome. And that brings a really good point. So you essentially built your business first and then went into speaking. Is that how speaking has played a role in your success?
Yeah. So my role you can't drink from an empty well. There are a lot of people right now because of COVID-19 that have jumped on the bandwagon of, I'm going to be a speaker, but they don't really know what they're doing. And you have to develop your expertise first. So I was successful in business. I had 17 different companies, some more successful than others. 3 of them were, 7-figure businesses with hundreds of employees. And so I got along the way, I learned a lot about business and different channels of distribution and ways to market. Well, because of that, then people started asking me, Ashley, hey, can you come speak to our group? Can you come speak to the chamber? Can you help my brother? He started a business. And then I said, well, heck, this is a business. And so then I started to charge for it. And then I learned about Toastmasters. And then I worked for the public seminar companies. And then I worked for big speakers and helped them. And then that was the career. So I didn't start looking to be a speaker. I started with the expertise. And then people wanted to know how to monetize it. And that's really what I do now is how do you take your content, your core intellectual property, and monetize it? So long answer, but I'll give you more as we go.
No. That's very, very good. And I think that one of the things that you said, a couple of things that you said that were gold is how do you monetize that intellectual property? And you also just totally just dropped that in there that you've built 17 businesses, some more successful than others, but 3 were, I assume, multi-7-figure businesses. And as a business growth expert, have you seen in all of the businesses that you started, what do you think is the key to the success of the 3 that really grew and expanded financially that all of our listeners can learn from? Because all of them, for the most part, have a core business that does not necessarily include speaking, and they're using speaking as an additional income stream to the core business. So what would be your thoughts on that? Like making a business successful, what has that looked like for you?
All right. So 2-part question. I guarantee if you're listening or watching right now or watching the replay, you should get a notepad, mark your calendar for when this launches on her blog to go back and watch the replay, because I'm going to give you a lot of valuable information in a short period of time. All right. With that little public announcement out of the way.
Right.
What I would say is it really comes down to the formula of message, market, and method. So wherever you are, whatever type of business you have, products or services, whatever industry you're in, whether you're B2B or B2C, you need to make sure that the combinations of your messages are clear. So I'll just tell you what it is. Your message is your value proposition. So for example, you speak your way to cash. You've got content related to people to learn how to use speaking either to sell or to promote whatever else they're selling.
Right.
You need to know what your message is. You need to know who your target market is. So back in the day, I managed Les Brown, famous motivational speaker. I managed him for 3 years, and his speaking fee was $30,000 at the time. Mine was $5,000. So here I am in a totally different market, speaking to different sized businesses, and he's speaking to huge corporations and huge things. So you need to know who your market is, and then number 3, you need to know what medium are you going to use to reach the market. So, for example, one of the things you're doing is you're using your podcast, building your influence, building your brand. And then, of course, you have I'm no doubt online programs and coaching things that you can do, and you're using this to build trust and credibility. So the difference was what made the businesses successful, not only the ones that I have, but the clients that I work with, is understanding what your value propositions are, how are you going to market, and then how are you going to get that message to the market? So if what you're doing right now is working, if you're growing your influence and getting leads, it's because you have the right combination. If it's not working, I guarantee you, if it's not working, if you've got a business that you know should be working, it's one of those three. It's the combination.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. That was so valuable. So hopefully you all took those notes. And I know for a lot of people listening, or at least some people listening, whether they will admit it or not, the message is the most challenging part for them to develop, especially when you're first starting out. And what I have seen amongst clients that we've worked with and just people as a consumer, what I see is there's some people who have too many messages. So how do you find or identify that core message? Because it's going to be that message that's going to really attract the people who you want to inevitably sell to.
Well, so one of the first things I do when I work with a client is we have them do a marketing dictionary. And you want to look at, so let's just say it's a speaker, because that's what your podcast is about. If it was a speaker, I want to identify what problems do you solve that other people will pay to make go away. You can get an expert that says, hey, Ashley, I want to learn how to be a speaker. I'm an expert on solar eclipses. Well, okay, great. You're an expert, but you got an audience of 2, like NASA. And I mean, that's not a real big market. So you want to start with really understanding, what's your core competency? How does your market want to consume it? Do they want to read it, listen it, or view it? Is it multimedia? So me as a digital marketer, I do a lot of Zoom and StreamYard and live events because it's video. People want to see it. Now, if I was teaching weight loss or, how to handle people with tact and skill, well, then maybe a podcast would be all I need. I wouldn't have to necessarily do video. So the biggest thing overarching is you have to know what your brand identity is. You have to know what your value propositions are. And then you need to know what your product pyramid is. So you need to know what can they get for free? What different things do you sell? Because in order to market, you want to know where do people come in to build trust and credibility? It's not just, so people can find about you. They can find about your guests by doing a podcast or listening to the podcast. But then if something sparks them, they're going to go I'm going to go connect with that person on LinkedIn, which people can do. Or I'm going to go look at that website, or I'm going to go download their book, or I'm going to go buy their book, or I'm going to attend an event. So it's a lot more. But the biggest thing is the biggest answer, and I'll summarize, you've got to know, why should someone pay you? And unfortunately, there are a lot of speakers right now because the barrier to entry is so low. You can just say I'm a speaker and, great. And worse, Ashley, there's a lot of speakers that were really great on the platform that are failing miserably with virtual because they're so used to the energy from the group. Like right now, I can just see you. I don't know if there's 10,000 people or 2,000 people or how many people are going to watch it.
Right.
So we have to use our own energy. I can't feed off the energy of the group.
Yep, exactly. That's a really good point. I love what you said about narrowing down why people should pay you, because right now there are a lot of, in the very beginning of the pandemic, my experience was companies were very tight. They were like, okay, Ashley, actually, in fact, every single contract that we had out, they paused it. They didn't say we were going to cancel, but they paused it. And so for the months of late February or March, when the US things hit up with the pandemic, they just paused. They were like, okay, let's figure out what's going on. We had a lot of college clients and some corporate clients. And what I saw in Q3 was they realized, okay, this is not going away. And all the value of those contracts actually doubled. But because they hadn't done anything for the rest of the year. And there were so many people who stopped talking to their clients because they felt like what they had wasn't valuable in the pandemic, that they stopped marketing. Whereas the people who kept going, and my clients that kept going, actually experienced, oh my gosh, we're landing larger contracts than we'd ever landed before. And people are quickly trying to spend the funds before the end of the year. So I think that knowing your message and knowing why people should pay you and knowing that you can provide a transformation, even in the state of the world right now, is so absolutely critical. So you work with a lot of business owners that are speakers and otherwise. What have you seen has made those that are still successful even now successful, because the world is very different and the way people buy is different. And I think the buying decision-making process is a little bit different than what we've experienced in the past.
All of those things are exactly correct. The world's definitely changed. The way people have changed, or the way people make buying decisions. We've got 5 different generations in the marketplace, or more if you want to, millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, traditionalists, boomers, the connected generation, Gen Z. Don't get caught up in the labels. The bottom line is the way people communicate and the way each generation makes decisions are different. So it's not just, you've got the economic and obviously the political stuff that's going on right now and will be going on for a while. And you've got COVID and you've got all this disruption, but at the end of the day, money has to move. Yeah. And so people still need training. People still need experts. People still want voices. I mean, it's like, if you go back and you look at history and then, when radio came out, they thought there wouldn't be live theater. When TV came out, they thought it was going to kill radio. When the internet came out, they thought no one would watch TV anymore. And then, I mean, yeah, it does change, but there's still ways to connect. So I would say that the most successful people, I don't want to use the word pivot because again, it's overused right now, but they really take a fresh look. They reboot, reframe, refocus, and rethink their business model. And look for, how can I add value and make a profit? I don't believe there's any such thing as a money problem. There's not a money problem out there. It's a value problem. If you want to make more money, ask yourself, how can I add more value? How can I add more value? And it depends on the delivery method, of course. Speaking is one way, or virtual events or virtual summits or video training or whatever it is that you all might do. The key is really, though, if you're not adding value, it doesn't matter. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, how can I add value? What's the best way? So one of the things that I've done is I've done sponsored events. So now I'm reaching out to vendors and my clients where I'm now doing programs for their clients. So for example, banks, I just did a thing for Mission Valley Bank, and you guys, it's public. You can Google it and go look it up. But at Mission Valley Bank, I sold 3 sponsored events, and it was timely and topical and relevant for their commercial customers. So I retitled my programs, I rebooted everything, created a new demo video, and then reached out to my contacts and said, hey, right now I know you want to engage your commercial customers. Why not just sponsor me and I'll do everything? And instead of them trying to, put a promotion out for the lowest interest rate or new home loan, instead, now they're promoting Hall of Fame keynote speaker, business growth accelerator, join us for our reignite, reemerge, whatever the hell I called it. I don't remember now. And so we created a program with 3 programs that they paid for. And now think about it. I'm adding goodwill to Mission Valley Bank. I'm adding goodwill to the commercial customers. They promoted it. They were on the media promoting it. It was on my LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, and all the other stuff. And so it's you have to look at your market and you have to ask yourself, who's my ideal client? For example, I don't speak to nurses. I don't speak to nursing associations. Maybe the association if they're trying to sell to get more members, but no, I mean that you have to really understand, who are you really trying to reach? And there's plenty of money out there. I mean, just don't believe all the hype. And just like you said about the pricing and, they don't have money. No, the CEOs that I'm talking to, they didn't spend that $100,000 or $10 million on their conference. So they have that money that they used to spend on the conference, and A, they have to spend it. B, they want to still communicate to their, core clients or distribution network.
Yeah. Okay. So I love what you said. And I don't even know if people caught the gem that you just dropped, but one of the things that we talk about is inviting people to see you in your element, as opposed to you doing the email blast, all that type of stuff. Because I think when you're selling on a higher level, 5-6-figure corporate speaking packages, they need to really see you in your element. And so I love what you said, because there's a double benefit. You get your speeches sponsored, but you're speaking to a group of individuals who could each in their own right be your ideal client as well. So
it's so simple. Exactly.
It's so beautiful. We just did a sponsored event with Smith AI, the receptionist service that I use, where I came and talked to all of their customers and also my customers about how to land these 5- and 6-figure corporate speaking contracts. Now I have 150 new people added to my list. They look great. I talk about how I use their service. It works really well. So for people listening, there may be businesses that you're already giving your money to, or utilizing their products or services, that would be ideal for a partnership, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you target entrepreneurs. So every tech system that I use is going to hear from me. And if I'm giving my money somewhere, also look for, just as a business tip, because I also own a law firm, intellectual property, make sure that if you're doing business with someone or you're buying their product and you can serve that particular company, you're seeing if they need your services. As a trademark lawyer, when I buy something and realize there's no trademark, that's an opportunity for me. And so you want to make sure that you're not missing any of that. But for people who are listening, who are like, oh my gosh, I would love to work with the bank, I would love to do what Ford just mentioned about sponsored events, how do I even reach out to them? Were you reaching out to them via email? Did you send something in the mail? Did you have any strategy to that piece of it as well?
So it's a two-part thing. First, I would say, grab a pen and write down this URL, talkwithford.com. Now, let's peel the curtains back. Because we're talking about speaking, I'm on Ashley's podcast. She asked a question. It's relevant for me to seed the listening audience to say, hey, those of you that want to meet with me one-on-one for a pre-call, you can go to Talk with Ford and talkwithford.com and you can get on my schedule. Okay, now it's a short call. It's 30 minutes or less, but it gives you a chance to answer some questions beyond what I can answer in this podcast or in this live stream event too, because it's a deeper question, right? So as far as marketing is concerned, you have to first identify, you have to get interest and build trust and credibility. So most of those people are either, thank you very much. Most of those people are either they're connected with me on LinkedIn. And what I do, so let's just say, I'm just going to use your company. I don't even know who Smith AI is. I'm just going to use their company, right?
Yeah.
So if I wanted to connect with them, the first thing I would do is I'd Google them. I'd look at their website. I'd look at their About Us page. I'd find out who the key, if they have a board of directors or if they have a leadership team. Then I would go to LinkedIn and I would connect with them. I don't send a cloudy message salesy. I literally don't. Sometimes I don't even send a message. I just connect with them. But here's the secret sauce. If I want to go to Smith AI and I want to get to the CEO, I'm not going to reach out to the CEO. I'm going to look at the receptionist, the shipping clerk. I'm going to go low level first and connect with people that barely ever get connections. And they're so excited that when they get a connection, and then I'm going to wait till I have 2 or 3 connections at that company. Then I'm going to go back and try to connect to the CEO. And then if I actually know anything about their products, I might say something like, hey, I love your voice over IP services, or I love your temporary staffing service, or I love, and I don't even ask for anything. Well, then they look at it, they see the note, and they see that I'm already connected to 7 people in their company, and they think, well, maybe he's one of our customers. So then they connect it. Well, once I've got the connection, now I can message them if I wanted to, although I don't spam them. I might share something of interest, something of value, something that's personal, useful, and brief, something that's not salesy at all. Like, you don't want to be selling, you want to deliver value. For example, I didn't drop Talk with Ford in the first 30 seconds because your listeners are going to be like, no, this is an infomercial. I don't want that. I have to make sure I set credibility. I give you real value. And knowing that we can only cover so much in a live stream event, people want to know more, but you have to deliver that value first. So just like what we're doing on this live stream event, it's the same thing you would do with a bank or a franchise or a corporation. You want to build credibility first, maybe send them an episode of your podcast or a video or a check sheet or a tip sheet. Deliver something of value first, build the trust first, or get an introduction from someone. Just don't try to come straight in through the front door saying, hey, I'm here, I can solve all your problems, because they hear that every day. I mean, I own a creative marketing agency. I've taken 3 calls today, Ashley, from people that want to sell me websites. And I'm like, did you not even Google my name? Like, did you, it'd be like me calling you saying, hey, Ashley, I'm a trademark attorney and, I could really help you. And you'd be like, hello, did you not Google me?
Yeah, no, that's so real. And I love what you said about that, because to be honest, I think for a lot of people, they want the fastest way to success. But the truth is, what you're talking about is relationship building. And I think what we discount is the more time you put in, the more you can expect out. And it just takes time to build relationships. But when the value of the agreement or the partnership is so large, you can take your time and build it. It doesn't have to be right away. You can spend a few weeks or months putting in effort. And some of the stuff you should have a way to create value with people quickly so that it is, it is something you can put a process to. It's not necessarily something that you have to reinvent each and every time you want to develop a partnership.
Yeah. And so if you were taking notes, I'd say, okay, number one, I'm going to do this off the top of my head. So just number one, if you were saying, what are the 5 elements of becoming successful? I'd say number one, you have to have expertise. Okay. You've got to have an expertise. You've got to have a revenue model. How are you going to sell? So I have speaking and training. I'm going to write this down so I don't repeat one of my things. So what was the first thing? First thing was, you have to have expertise. Okay.
Yep,
the second thing is you got to have a revenue model. And so my revenue model is I speak and train to corporations and associations, but I also put my own public events on. So you can, I have public events and live stream events. I'm part of the Legends Summit coming up. The last one was with Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Nito Cobain. I mean, it's some very people that are much bigger than I am. We're part of the Legends Summit. It's not an event I'm putting on, but I do public events. And then, so you've got to have a revenue model. So I go speaking, consulting, products. I have an agency. So we do done for you marketing. And then I have joint ventures. So I have joint ventures where, let's say you and I were going to do the speaker summit. Well, you would say, hey, Ford, I want you on the speaker summit. I'd say, okay, Ashley, give me 10% of what you sell on the door. And you'd be like, it'd be your event. So that's a joint venture. All right. So number one, you have to have expertise. 2, you have to have a revenue model. 3, you have to be, I would normally say good on stage, but now it's any stage, whether that's screen or whether that's virtual or Zoom or StreamYard or whatever it is. You got to be good on stage. You have to be able to deliver real value. Now, this is not a keynote presentation. I'm not telling the humorous story. I'm talking fast because I'm trying to give you as much information before you say, thanks for visiting, Ford, and we're on to the next guest. Okay, so that's 3. Number 4, you've got to have a digital footprint. And your digital footprint has some subcomponents. Your digital footprint is your website. So for example, when Ashley reached out to me, there's thousands of people who had podcasts. I'm not just going to go on every podcast that someone asks me because I don't need to. Like if I was just starting out, I might. But I do 7 podcasts a week, at least, if not more, between interviews and other things. So the digital footprint, number 1, is your website. And basically your digital footprint is what shows up if someone Googles your name. So you have to have a compelling website. You have to have your social media profiles effective. Now, I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook because I'm business to business. So my Facebook, my team does it. It could be way better. So, don't throw stones in a glass house. I could do better. But I do work a lot more on LinkedIn and YouTube because that's where my market is, right? Mm-hmm. So digital footprint is your website, your social media, your business review websites. So for example, I have over 120 5-star Google reviews. Do you have your Google platform set up or whatever industry you're in? If you're selling homes, then it would be Home Advisor. If it's personal services, it might be Angie's List. So your review websites, your business directory listings, which are, Ashley, if you're a member of an association, you probably have a company listing. If you're a member of Speaker Match, or, whatever, a bureau, or you have anywhere where your name is listed, you have to go back and see, did you update your address, your phone number, your website, your bio, your pictures? And then finally, it's your search engine rankings. So just that digital footprint could be a whole whole episode in itself. And then the last thing is you have to market. So I'm going to repeat those. 1 is your experience. You have to have good expertise. You have to have a revenue model. You have to be great on stage. You have to have a digital footprint, and then you need to market. I don't like rejection any more than the rest of you. Some people really love rejection. Yeah. The reason I'm a great marketer is I want people calling me. Like you called me. I didn't reach out to you and say, hey, can I be on your on your show? Right. You reached out to me because of my footprint. Whether you Googled me or found me or went to the Hall of Fame in NSA or whatever you did, you found me. And I'm not saying I'm all that in a bag of chips. I'm not. There are a lot of people who make way more money than me. And I'm going to say this too. I'm going to detour for a second.
Okay.
You got the 5 things. You got the 5 things, okay? Which had like 3 subcategories. That's a whole thing in itself. But I want to really send a caution. And I'm going to pause for this one. Take a moment of silence.
Okay.
Listen carefully, everybody. Be careful who you take expertise from when you're trying to grow your speaking business. There are so many charlatans, I call them speaker parasites, that want to tell you that you can grow your business in 24 hours. And then spend 10 grand with me and I'm going to get you booked. And here's how I can get you leads. And it's such BS. Now, for keeping this PG rated or whatever, BS stands for belief system. So
Right.
we're just going to leave it at that. But it's just crap. It's just not true. You know, like Ashley said, if you're going to grow your business, this is a business. Is it a hobby or a business? And if you want to grow a business, grow your business. But I will tell you, no, don't drink the Kool-Aid from the people who don't know. Make sure you're listening to the advice from someone who's actually been there and done that. And again, you can vet me easy. Google my name and you'll clearly be able to see all the hundreds of brands I've worked with that I'm the real deal. But there are so many people who, because of the internet, because it's so easy to the low barrier to entry, that say, they go and they go to a seminar and they say, I'm going to create a product, and they go home and, learn how to build your speaking career in 3 hours. Well, they're just regurgitating what somebody else did, or it's like the people on YouTube that stand in front of the Ferrari and and they do the tour. Now, I'm not saying some of those guys haven't, because I know some of them, and some of them are really successful and they're really sharp, but there are so many other posers that are just not even real. So the key point takeaway is,
I think the key point may even be that even the people in front of the Ferraris likely didn't do it in 24 hours. And I think
they didn't.
They spent years upon years building their business, failures, having businesses that didn't work out, having businesses that did, multiple investments. And then they feel like maybe they feel like they've gotten it together. And so they're going to give it to you. So you have a shortened learning curve. But the problem really is the selling with integrity, because the fact is it's going to take time, and it doesn't matter who you work with. You also have to do the work, because I often tell people, I'm not going to send a single pitch email for you. So even my clients who've done extraordinarily well and booked 5- and 6-figure engagements, I didn't send the pitch emails for them. Well, even if I gave them the formula or I gave them some advice or expertise, they still had the confidence, the competence, and the time and the diligence to press send or to do the things that were needed to get done. And so I know people want it quick, but I'm so glad you said that, because we work with people over the course of a year. And a lot of people have messaged me like, oh no, why would I spend all this time? Why would I spend a year? Because it's a business, and if you spend 1 year building the foundational elements for a business that you can eat on for the next decade, that's not a lot of time. But a lot of people do want the quick course. But what's so ironic is most people buy those quick courses and they don't take them. So it doesn't really matter anyways.
Well, and here's the other thing, I'll just give you a couple examples on that. So it's public knowledge. My speaking fee for a keynote is 25 grand. I don't get that necessarily for live streams. Some live streams I have, some I haven't. I want to eat like everybody else. I want to work and do this. But what I would tell you is, I didn't like tell a whole signature story, but the real quick version is, kid from the projects in North Minneapolis, 9th grade education, worked a bunch of different jobs, invented a product. Then I invented a couple more products, and that led to my business career. So that's like the short story of how I got there. Now, along the way, I sold a lot of different products: childcare, healthcare, automotive, service businesses. There's no better business than the information business.
Yeah.
People will pay more for information than they will for anything. I mean, I used to make $1.75 an hour, handing out change at a video arcade. You remember you're probably too young, Ashley, but there used to be these rooms where you could go to and they'd have video games, and you actually had to put a quarter into it. There was no Nintendo or Sega or Xbox. Anyway, so I actually, to get paid what I get paid, it's interesting because I've had people say to me, what can you possibly say that's worth 25 grand? Well, I've got clients that make 125 grand an hour. So we'll hold that for just a second. So I don't think that 25 grand is like the top by any means. I mean, like I said, Les is at 75,000. I just talked to him last week. He's at 75 grand now for a keynote. Okay. So here I'm thinking I'm all that at 25, and he's still 3 times, but he's 10 times bigger. Anyway, so for me to make $25,000, you have to work on your prosperity consciousness, and you have to know what you do. Now, when I go into a brand and I help them with their marketing and I help them make $1 million or 10, shouldn't they pay me 25 grand? Sure. So going back to the original question about, costs for your year program or whatever it is that you guys are all selling, it's value for value exchange. If you're going to be a consultant, speaker, author, trainer, and you're going to provide value, you have to charge based on what that value brings, not based on cost of goods, not based on the competition. You do not want to be a commodity. So let's say you're a leadership speaker. Okay. Well, there's leadership speakers that are 2,000 and 10,000. Now here's something very key, and I want you to hear this. If you're new to the speaking business, but you've been a leader of a CEO or a big company, that transition can be pretty easy, and you can warrant a higher fee.
Yes.
Because you actually had, but there are people who teach speakers, oh, if you're new, charge 1,500 and then go to 25 and then go to 5. But that's not true.
Well, you
charge
know,
for your value.
Let me just say this, because I feel like, how many years have you been in the business? Like 20,
35.
35. Okay. I want you all to hear this from Ford. He has 35 years of experience, and he just said something that I have been preaching to you all from the very beginning. Okay. So maybe you will believe it, because a lot of speaking coaches teach what I think is error, that you have to start from the bottom and work your way up to the top. But a lot of the people that I work with, especially women of colors with advanced degrees, should absolutely start at the top and help someone else up from the bottom, because you already have a PhD. I've worked with people who've written over 150 articles for Forbes. They have their doctorate in it. They have a framework. They know their expertise. There's no issue of competence. There's just an issue of getting bad advice and then implementing it. So you do not have to do that. You absolutely can start at the top. And it's often an issue of packaging, because what you said is value. So if you are, and I'm like putting on my lawyer hat, right? Like if you are someone who has developed a training that every single person in an organization can get value from, you could sell that one training for $50,000 to $75,000 per year, license it out, update it annually, and you could sell that same training to every single large corporation across America. You can at least position it as such. So there's so many different ways to package that expertise and knowledge, and it's not based on how many years you've been speaking technically. They just want to know, can you transform our people from point A to point Z with the information that you have? So hopefully they listen to what you said, because you said you need to work on your prosperity consciousness, which I wrote down because I think it's so brilliant and eloquently stated. I just wanted to point that out, because sometimes people don't believe me. You know, I'm young, but I know what I'm talking about. Okay. I've been in IP. I've negotiated those licensing deals. I've landed them for myself and others. And I've seen companies literally pay these figures when it is packaged and positioned appropriately.
Yeah. And so a couple of key points on that. One, you know, I do a lot of public events, and I have business owners that are new. I mean, I work with, brand new people in business, and a lot of speakers, authors, trainers, consultants come to me because they're like, hey, what do I do? And I've spent this money over here, and I spent this money over here, and I've lost money, and what do I do? And so I hear the same thing that you've heard. And what I would tell people is, some people will come to me and they'll say, I have 15 years experience. And I say, okay, do you have 1 year that you repeated 15 times, or did you actually grow?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you actually grow your expertise? Just because you've done a job for 20 years or 10 years doesn't mean you have the expertise. What I would tell those people, so let's go through the two. If you're new, get good on the platform, go speak at the chamber, do it for free, get on a bunch of podcasts. If you're new and you want to practice your presentation skills, you want to learn how to answer questions on the media, like you need to make sure there's two sides of this. You've got to be able to present your content in a professional manner with humor and stories and slides or whatever you do. Now that's the one half. The other side is the business side. You got to look at who's going to pay me and why should they pay me and how much should they pay me? And it has to be value for value. I mean, you think about it, if you're a leadership speaker, and I'm just using leadership generically, if you're going to go into an organization and show them how to lead, or let's do one even more obvious. Let's say you're someone who wants to help people with sales and marketing. And you say, okay, Ashley, I'm gonna come in and help you. It's $750. Well, there's a credibility issue, because I'd be like, what's wrong with this product? Like, why would I hire you when you haven't even learned how to sell your own services at a premium price?
Exactly.
And so you have to have, that's where the digital footprint comes in handy, because if someone wants to hire you, they're going to Google your name. It's the same thing I did with you. I mean, I literally was like, you reached out to me. I Googled it and I'm like, okay, professional site. She's got 84 episodes. Looks like she's got her act together. I'm going to do the show, and now I've got a new friend. Now I've got influencers.
Yeah.
Now I'm reaching people that I wouldn't have reached because they're your listeners. They're not my listeners. And so now they get a chance to expand my footprint and deliver the real deal. And it's just like if you wanted to be on Ashley's podcast, she can't just interview anybody because she doesn't want to take the risk of interviewing someone who either says something that isn't accurate, and it's okay if she disagrees, that's different.
Right.
But I said to you, if I was to say to you right now on the podcast, if you're new, start here, I would want her to her respect her group and say, hey, Ford, I really don't agree with that, and here's why. And I know she would do that, everybody. So let's pause for a second and make sure you understand what we just went through in this fire hose. First, if you've already got the value, it's really the packaging. And that's something that I help you with. Some Ashley can help you with. You go to whatever works best for you. There's other people who can help you. But just know you've got to have your brand, your identity, your digital footprint to look like $1 million if you want to make $1 million. It has to be congruent. You can't get professional photos done. Don't have a picture of you holding your dog unless you're in the pet industry. Don't have a blurry selfie with half your face cut off. I mean, make sure you look the part. Okay. And that's exactly what, if you go to Ashley, Google her name and look at her platform, everything's professional. It's organized. It's clean. It's mobile responsive. She's got enough credibility to have someone go, yeah, I should listen to Ashley. And that's what I'm going to suggest you really be careful of who you spend your money with, because man, I'm telling you what, and I'm part of several communities that help speakers.
Yeah.
I mean, the Legends thing and, Stage Time University and NSA and EO, and I could just rattle off things the rest of the day. And there's no shortage of people who want to learn. So one of the things that Ashley's market does is, she's going after business owners. She's going after experts. And again, women of color. Like I just talked, there's a client I should give you. She was looking for help. I don't have her name right now. I'll have to email you separately because I don't remember online. But she was a powerful Black female. She was an actress, and she was in the corporate world for 30 years. So she was on The Wire, and then she went into the corporate world and worked for like 30 years in HR. And now because she got laid off because of COVID. And so she reached out and she was like, hey, what do I do? And how do I do it? And I gave her some directions. I need to follow up with her, but she'd be a great client for you because she's at that same point where she's got the expertise and she's trying to figure out who to listen to and what advice really works. I think, use common sense. That when it comes to prosperity consciousness, I would tell you this, listen to what Ashley and I are saying. Be a critical thinker. Just don't tell us that what we're saying won't work if you haven't tried it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Is there's so many people that you give advice to that say, oh, well, that won't work. Well, why are you telling me it won't work when you haven't even tried it? Or I'll call somebody who's in a coaching program with me and I'll say, hey, did you call some leads this week?
Yeah.
I called everybody and they both said no. I said, well, that's not everybody. I mean,
I know. I totally understand that.
Or let's say you do your website and you show it like I'll tell you, I'm a copywriter and my wife is a Pilates instructor and certified trainer. And, when I write copy, she's way more educated than I am. She's got degrees in English and I don't have any of that stuff. Like someone told me one day, Ashley, I had a hanging participle in a sentence and I was like checking my nose for boogers. Like, I don't know what a hanging participle is. And so I showed my sales letter to my wife and she redlined it and just, this doesn't make sense. And I tell her, look, I want you to look for grammar because I want to make sure I don't use a word incorrectly or, do something, but the content is fine. Well, she wasn't my market, right? So you got to be careful that you don't go show your husband, wife, spouse, or your friends, because half your friends don't want you to be successful anyway, secretly. So they might give you advice if they're not really good friends. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They may give you advice, and then all of a sudden you think you're going left, and then you're going right, and then you end up at the end of the day going, I don't know what I'm doing. It's because you're not listening to the right advice, and you're not being a critical thinker. So what I want you to be a critical thinker is, if what we're saying makes sense, test it, and you'll see that what we're saying is the real deal. It really does work. But we're responsible to you, not for you. So as a listener or viewer, we'll give you the information. You still have to follow through. So I've got multiple trademarks and multiple patents. And Ashley, it was interesting because I spent over 7 figures on this kind of stuff. Now that I've done it so much, I've been in so many meetings, boardrooms and board meetings, where people will say, where'd you get your law degree? And I'm like, well, I don't have one, but I've certainly spent enough and I've lost enough money and I've lost enough cases that I found out what to do and what not to do. But my point is, it was interesting. And one of the things I learned about patents and trademarks was it just gives you the right to fight. It doesn't. It wasn't just a cape, or it wasn't just, oh, I've got a patent, I'm protected. It was, oh, that gives you a chance to argue, and that was a real eye opener for me. As you well know, in trademarks, and you can still win, but it's not just a magic bullet.
Because you actually, it sounds like, have fought. Because what we see is a lot of people are like, oh, I have 15 trademarks, but they would not spend $1 to defend any of them. And so that becomes a problem. And there's some deterrence factor to it. But the fact of the matter is, you have to be prepared to go to litigation if someone violates that right.
Hey, I have a question for you, Ashley.
It's been more difficult. So
here's a question. Have you ever heard the term sales funnel?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So the guy who owns that trademark is a friend of mine. His name's Ray Leone. He's 76 years old. He's been producing products for 50 years. Okay. He owns the trademark on Sales Funnel. I was on a group call with him. It's no secret. You guys can Google it. I was on a Zoom call with him yesterday, and he said, you know how I'm going to make money? I'm going to go after all these people that have violated my trademark. And he's like, just thinking he's going to make millions. And I said to him, Ray, I got good news for you and bad news. I said, first of all, you've never protected it.
Yeah.
So even if you have the trademark, you didn't protect it, which basically and I said to everybody, which I will say now, nothing that I have said today is legal advice. This is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not an attorney or play one on TV. Go to Ashley if you have legal advice. But what I told him was, you didn't fight for it or protect it, and you can't prove that you did, and therefore you forfeited your right to try to go after all these people just because they use Sales Funnel. He was going to go after Russell Brunson and Tony Robbins and all this. I said, they're going to laugh you out of the freaking room. Anyway, I don't know if that's right, but that's what I told him.
You just have to be careful, guys, because like what he's talking about is dilution. So like essentially, if I put on my website, you can Google me. Google, you know what I mean? Like that literally has become synonymous with search. Right. It doesn't necessarily, it's not a brand identifier anymore. And so with what's happened with Sales Funnel, possibly just for educational purposes,
right.
Is like I could say, oh, I have a sales funnel. Every single marketing person out there utilizes the term sales funnel.
That's right.
Not to be a brand identifier, but to say, look, you're going to buy this, then this is going to happen, then that's going to happen. It's just to describe a process by which a consumer buys your products.
100%.
It's not necessarily a brand identifier. So you have to be careful. And that happened. There was a recent case, very popular, with the Black Lives Matter. It's not a brand identifier anymore because it's so widely used and it hasn't been policed or protected in that way. And so you have to be very, very, very careful. If something goes viral or takes off, all of those things may mean that you're on the path to dilution. So if you don't protect and defend, it can become something that's just open for the general public. So you want to be really, really careful with that stuff. But it's so interesting because your intellectual property is the one thing that's going to make you, I think, the millionaire the fastest. And that's what I tell speakers is like those licensed rights and you creating products and you creating trainings that you can sell and blow up and kind of just do without you being there. That's going to be the fastest and most secure path to millions. And I think when it comes to you selling your company, it's going to be those products that will make your valuation stick more so than it being a totally personality driven brand that people can't value otherwise. So just keep those things in mind, guys. This has been such a good conversation. I feel like we didn't even get to so many other things that we could talk about, but we are new friends, so we will stay in touch. And you mentioned that you work with Les Brown, and I would be remiss if I did not ask this. What is the thing that you've seen in the careers of some of your peers in the industry, like Les and some others that you've mentioned through this interview, that has allowed them to last as a speaker successfully, and yourself included?
I would say they were beyond content to a personal identity. So, anybody can tell you think and grow and, believe in yourself, but it's tell a story, make a point. And so the people that have been able to be successful weave in their personal stories, not just other people's stories, not just, regurgitating stories that everybody uses or reading Chicken Soup from the Soul and thinking you're a keynote speaker. But it's I got plenty of those. But it's really looking at your significant emotional events in your life and then making points because of it. So just like what Ashley did today, she was saying that, she was successful as an attorney and trademark. And then now she's telling people, look, the fastest way to grow your business is to create that intellectual property. I would say the two things are really, you've got to have that personal identity. You've got to have a brand identity. And you've got to have a really clear one. People need to know how to describe you to other people. You've got to be remarkable, timely, topical, and relevant. The reason that Les Brown, Les is an anomaly. He's like a brother to me, so that's a little different. But if you're any type of speaker, you really have to have an identity. When someone thinks about you, what do they think about? If they can't describe you, then you don't have a clear brand identity. So I've worked really hard, and I'll share with you. When I first started in this business, I'm an entrepreneur of success, and I thought I wanted to be a motivational speaker because I loved motivational speakers. But I'm not a motivational speaker. I mean, yeah, I get hired and they think but that's not where I'm the guy that looks at your business model and connects the dots and helps you with your sales funnel. Good luck, Ray Leone. Good, come after me if you want. But I'm someone who helps you with your model and really helps you. I do help you increase your influence, build your subscriber lists, help you get leads and referrals, and then help you get more sales, new and repeat. So I'm very clear what I do. My identity is very clear. But when I started, I thought I was going to be motivational, and that shifted. And then I promoted myself as a marketing speaker. It was all marketing. But what I found out was, in my own way of thinking, marketing is a feature. It's a process. What people want is the result of marketing. So what I want you to think about is, what do you do? Now, obviously, if a meeting planner calls me and says, I want a program on marketing, sure, I can help you with the marketing. But business growth or business growth acceleration is the result of marketing. So what I want everybody to think about is, what's the end result of what you do? Now it could be, around leadership, communication, diversity, inclusion, production, productivity, creativity. I mean, whatever your topic is, but you've got to make sure that you're communicating in a way that people know why they're spending the money. They need that emotional reason why they're spending, but then they need the logical reason.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, how much time do we have left? Are we almost at the end? I don't remember how long we were going today.
Oh yeah, you're great. Did you have something else? I mean, I'm
going to share something else. So I had a guy call me. His name was actually Tim Scher, the guy who actually founded the Legends Summit. And you guys can Google it later. But years ago, he called me and he said, I was looking for a speaker coach. And he said, I've spent so much money with all these other programs. And your name kept coming up. He said, I just want to talk to you. So I did the talk with Ford, just like I gave everybody here. You can go to Talk with Ford. And on the first call, we talked and I said, I can really help you. And he said, well, what's it going to cost me? I said, it's $10,000. And he's like, oh, no, I just want to ask you some questions. And I said, okay, it's $10,000. And so we went back and forth. And he's like, well, what will that do? I said, you get instant access to me for 90 days and I'll help you with everything related to your brand. And I guarantee you I can help you make the $10,000 back. I said, so, if you want, now, obviously I knew he had expertise first. He had to qualify, but once he qualified, I knew he could do it. So he says, okay, I'm in, I've checked you out. I'm going to spend the money. So he spends the money. He gives me his American Express. We schedule a Zoom call. At that time, it was GoToMeeting. You guys can Google GoToMeeting. It wasn't Zoom. So we go our GoToMeeting session for the next morning, and I get on the first call, and there he is on the webcam, and he says to me, hey, I've got some bad news. I'm really sorry. I said, what's going on? He said, well, I told my wife that I invested in another coach, and she was going to divorce me. She said, if I spend one more nickel on speaking or becoming a speaker, that she's going to divorce me. And he was dead serious. There was no joking. He's like, look, I'm really sorry I wasted your time. I respect you, but can you give me a refund? And I said, sorry, there's no refunds on consulting. He said, well, we haven't even started yet. And I was kind of pulling his chain a little bit, but I said, look, why don't we have the first call? And if after the first call, you still want your money back, I'll give you your money back. We're already on the call. I've already got it blocked off. Let's just see if I can help you make some money. I said, let's get the money thing out of the way. I said, do you have expertise? Yes. So he was somebody who worked with people to reduce their disruption in their organization and to reduce their stress. This is pre-COVID, guys. This is years ago. So I said, who are you going to sell to? He said, well, I've got a lead. I'm going to speak in 2 days. The CEO of a manufacturing company, they just got bought out, and there's a lot of people that are worried they're going to lose their jobs, and there's new people coming in, and there's a lot of disruption, and I'm going to go in and help him reduce that friction. I said, okay, great. What are you going to do? He said, I'm going to do a one-day training for $5,000. And I said, that won't work. His first comment to me was, is that too expensive? And I said, look, I ran a manufacturing company. First of all, they're not going to shut their whole company down to go to an all-day training. I said, this doesn't even make sense. So I'm going to fast forward for the purposes of this live stream. For the next hour, I spent time with him on prospecting questions, value propositions. I taught him how the value is of turnover. Like, what does it cost if an employee leaves a company? They lose 6 months worth of work, the brain trust, the relationships. I showed him how to value what he did because he didn't know how to value. He didn't understand how to value what he did. I said, look, I'm going to write a proposal for you. You're going to go in and you're going to ask, I said, bring a notepad. And I actually had a notepad right there. I said, bring a notepad, read it right off to the CEO, ask exactly what I'm telling you to do, follow my plan. And if the guy doesn't sign the deal, I'll give you your money back. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. I said, so what are you going to sell for? And I said, well, I want you to do a $15,000 45-minute kickoff. Bring everybody in the room and do a motivate, because he was a motivational speaker and he was helping people. I said, so do a 45-minute for 15 grand. And then because he had 2 small kids and didn't want to travel, I said, tell him you'll come by 2 hours a month for 6 months, and it's $7,500 a month. So it's 15 grand up front, $7,500 a month for 6 months. That's the contract. And tell him that the reason you have to do that is you have to diagnose before you prescribe, and you have to get to know them. And maybe the 2 hours will spent with executive coaching. Maybe the 2 hours will be spent doing a workshop or a customer. Like, you don't know yet, but they need to invest in solving the problem.
And what you're saying is, and what this is so many good things. You can't solve a problem. And this is the truth that I think speakers are scared to say to clients because they think the client will run away. But I literally say this to clients all the time. I can't solve the problem that you want. I can't create the vision that you have for your company in 45 minutes. And it doesn't matter what you pay me for that 45 minutes. It is going to take me time. And so we have to have a long-term arrangement. And when COVID hit, we stopped working with clients that only wanted one-time solutions. If you want a quick fix to your problem, then this is not it. What this is a long-term solution to an ever-growing problem. And that involves a long-term commitment from you, financially and time. Every problem involves 2 parts. You got to invest time to fix it, and you got to invest money to fix it. And depending on how much time you can have fixing it, that's going to determine how much money you're going to have to put down. Less time, more money. More time, maybe you could do less money because you can go the slow route. You can have books and everything else. But what I will say to every speaker listening, this is something every speaker listening can take from what Ford just said. Never, and you've heard me say this before, but now that someone with 35 years of experience has said it, you will believe it. Never go in with the one-off engagement. It does not make sense. On that call with your client, you need to be diagnosing and co-creating vision with them such that after that call, they can't Google and find anyone else that can do what you've created with them on that first call. Don't go in as just a leadership speaker. Co-create vision. You don't want them getting off that call like, okay, this is what they said they'll do. We're going to just Google up something. They said I should do this. I'm just going to Google that book and read that and give it to, no. If that is what your clients are doing after your call, you have not given them a strong enough value proposition for why they should hire you versus anyone else. So I love what you said. I think that people should know that $5,000 is not a lot of money for a person to invest in anything, especially on a corporate level. Get that out of your mind. I almost want to forward, because I love what you said, but one thing I see a lot, and maybe you see this too, and this is particularly problematic in the DEI space. So many DEI speakers are being literally robbed by corporations who are paying them these little bitty, like $2,000 to address the biggest elephant since dawn. It's crazy because one, the topic isn't even fun. I have done topics that have been tangential to DEI and I'm never like, oh, implicit bias. This is the day. Like, no one wakes up wanting to have these really deep-rooted, systematic conversations about race, but it's a need. And so if you're someone who is skilled at helping companies get through those types of issues, they have to pay for that because it is such an important thing. I think we should do something for DEI speakers because I feel like they get it the worst. But I love what you're talking about. And so many gems in what you said. I'm so glad you shared that story. That was brilliant. And you have to tell us. So it sounds like it went well for the guy.
So here's what happened. So he calls me up that day and he said, oh my God, I got through 6 of the 16 questions. The CEO was almost in tears. And I said, here's how I can help you solve it. He signed the contract and wrote him a $25,000 check. And so it was a $60,000 deal. They gave him a $25,000 check up front. And then he went on to do business. Now you can Google my name and Google you can find a video testimonial from him that was non-solicited that, he left for me. But the reason I share that story, and that I got 100 stories like that, is prior to working with me, his vision was so small. He had so much bad information. And, so he spent the 10 grand and all he was focused on was the 10 grand he spent. Right. I said, look, you're not thinking about this correctly. And I'm just going to piggyback on one thing that Ashley said. When Ashley said, don't go in with anything one time off, here's where you have contrast. I don't mind giving somebody the one time off, but I'm going to say to them this. I'm going to say, look, here's what you asked me for. You want me to do a one and done? Fine. I'll come in. It's 25 grand. I'll do the keynote. I'll, hit and run. That's fine. But if you really want a transformation.
Exactly.
So I'll give them what they want, because sometimes if you don't give them what they want, they feel right. And so that's the only caveat I would say to give them what they want, but then, and also be prepared to walk away. I mean, I know as a coach and as an attorney, you've had to do this with I've had coaching clients. I had a preview call with a billionaire who I won't name because you guys would know who he is. And he wanted to be a speaker, and he wanted to go out and, tell his story. He made a very big company that was well known. And I kept on trying to give him ideas, and every idea on the first prospect call, he just was telling me it won't work. And I said to him later, I said, Brian, this isn't going to work. And he said, well, why not? I said, look, I don't think I'm the right person for you, because every idea I've given you, you've told me it won't work when you really don't know. Yes, you've made $1 million billion more money than I've ever made, but this isn't the sandbox you're playing in. You think that because you were successful over here, that you can apply that. And I said, there's some nuances that you just aren't ready to hear yet. Yep. And so he went and he failed for 6 months. And then he came back and said, okay, now I'm ready. And so the note is, you get it.
You said something that signals your integrity. You said like this probably won't work. And I think for people who are listening, who are like, how do I evaluate whether or not I should work with a particular coach? I'm always leery of coaches that take everybody's money. I'm always leery of people who are like, oh yeah, I can help everybody. I could do everything. That works out perfectly. I don't think you should work with those types of people, because we've had people even come to us like, oh, well, are you going to teach us Facebook ads as a part of your program? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Right. I want to be very clear. I am not going to teach you that. And so if that's what you want, this isn't the best fit. I've also referred people, but when you all are evaluating, because I know everyone's so hyped, they're like, okay, now I'm going to research coaches. I'm going to look up Ashley and Ford, and I'm going to figure out.
Do it.
Yeah, like you should do it. But like you should, I think one of the things that is critical, even if you don't work with either of us ever, is like, is this person going to lie to me and say they can help me when they can't? And you want to be really careful about people who ask no questions. So if working with them is just like you sign up, you pay the money, but they don't ask you any questions, you can't reach them for questions, they're not digging at all, that could be another sign so that you don't waste your money. Because it breaks my heart when people are like, oh, I've spent all this money with, and literally, I've had people spend money with celebrities that all would know. And then they come to me and it's their first time hearing things like, you could start off with a $50,000 or $60,000 proposal. You can go in with a 6-figure offer. This is how you're going to like not waste time pitching people who don't have money. And they're like, oh, but I thought I had to do it for free. Or I thought it's just, it blows my mind. It's not necessarily about the celebrity of it. So really consider that, guys, because guess what? Jeff Bezos, amazing, brilliant businessman, but he may not be a coach. So It's not necessarily, is this person rich? It's, are they able to give me the information that I need in a step-by-step manner to get the result that I want? Like, don't get caught up in the Ferrari and the private jet. That doesn't matter. And I think people just want to be tangential to successful people more than they actually want to get the information sometimes.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is, we've covered so many different areas just in an hour, right? And here's why. I'm going to peel back the curtains. Now, if this was a podcast for a different type of topic, I wouldn't pull back the curtains. But what am I trying to do? Okay. Obviously, I'm not trying to take subscribers or listeners away from Ashley. If I add value, you guys will know I add value. I'm not saying spend money with me, but maybe you'll refer, maybe you need a website, maybe you need branding, maybe I offer something that she doesn't. And if nothing else, now you know who I am.
Stuff that I don't like, all that digital marketing. Do not come to me saying, can I build your website and fix your funnel? No.
That's what you would come to me for.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, part of what I had to do today was one, Ashley doesn't know me. This is the first time that we've actually even talked, was today on her show. Obviously, we vetted each other, but that was it. We didn't have a pre-call. She has her agenda. I'm a good enough guest to let her take it where she wants to go. But I have an agenda too. I needed to make sure you knew I was a speaker, that I had credibility, that I've worked with people in all different sizes of their business. I had to drop enough topic areas. So two things happened. One, now Ashley knows, hey, my guest just canceled. Ford, can you jump on a call? She knows that we could jump on a call because we could do an hour on any of the things that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Trademarks, product development, branding, digital footprint, digital marketing, email marketing, how to price your services, how to do your value ladder. We got a year's worth of content. Now, obviously, as a expert, I'm not just going to give it away, but you can't give it away enough for free. So I want to just talk about the free to fee thing.
Mm-hmm.
Go everybody here, regardless of what your industry is. I'm looking at the chat. So Aria and other people that are on Facebook and the other people that are here, Lori and everything, share your expertise. If you're new, get good at the podcasting because that's easy. Get a camera, get a good mic, do the podcast, get used to doing that. Then go to media, then build your platform where you're actually selling it. But if a company says to you, I don't have a budget, here's what I will tell. I'm going to give you a gem right now. If you're in this business and you're a speaker, and I'm going to say speaker, author, trainer, consultant, if you're in that row, and you've heard this before, no matter what fee you quote, the meeting planner is always going to tell you it's too expensive. I don't care what price you're at. You could say I'm $2,500 and they're going, oh, we don't have a budget. Or they say we don't pay speakers. Or, well, you're going to get a lot of exposure. Well, sometimes that's true, just for the record. But most of the time,
right,
you need to say, if I come up, if I say, if a meeting planner says, what's your fee? Never give price before value, rule number one. So if someone's saying, what's your fee? And I say, well, let's talk first, and they don't want to talk, I'll say, look, I'm the wrong speaker. Because if all you're doing is making a decision based on fee, then you're going to make a bad decision and you don't really care about your audience. And I just get out of the way. Number two, if we do add value and she isn't, or he or she is interested in hiring me, and they say, well, your fee's too much, we've got speakers that will do it for half the fee. Here's what I say. I'm sure those other speakers would like to charge what I charge, but they don't make the impact I do that allows me to charge the fees I charge. So you guys can use this, record it, and reuse it. I don't care what service. If you're an attorney, a doctor, or the home healthcare worker, whatever you do, if someone's competing with you on fee, you just say, well, you can say two things. You can say, I do have packages that fit most reasonable budgets. That's one thing you can say, just so that you can keep the conversation going. So I do have packages, or I do have products, or I do have fill in the blank that fit most reasonable budgets. That allows you to negotiate and change the scope and change the size. But if it's fee to fee, I just say, look, I'm sure, especially when I do sales and marketing, it's so easy for me. I said, do you want someone to come in and help you increase your sales where the first thing you teach your salespeople is to drop your fee? Is that why you want to hire me? So it's easy for me because of the industry I'm in, but it doesn't matter what topic you have. You can just say, well, I'm sure there's people that would like to charge what I charge, but they don't make the impact, or they don't have the 12 years of experience, or they haven't been a CPA or whatever it is that you are, right? And so knowing how to communicate, you can learn this. This is a skill.
This is language, guys.
Yeah,
this is language. And honestly, I think that for a lot of people, it's beyond language. It's the confidence to hold your clients accountable. And one of the things that you can do is if you're starting a new relationship with a client that's going to hire you in a consultative role, you need to start advising them from the jump. So if you're a DEI expert or you talk in any of that space and people want to underpay you, you need to be comfortable saying, are you comfortable with me holding you accountable? Because that's a part of what you get when you hire me. I don't want you to undervalue this because it sends the wrong signal to your employees. Like sometimes you just need to be honest with your client and make sure that they are being reasonable in what they're doing. And I love the language that Ford gave us because you need language, people. Most of you watching are experts. You already know your stuff. You already know that you can actually help these companies out. You just don't have the language to sell into corporate in an effective manner. And so you sell a little bit, like you send the pitch, which took confidence. But then when you get on the phone, it's like, oh my God, I can't say the figure. And so what I would recommend every speaker do is write themselves a check. Don't, cash it or whatever, but write yourself a check with that ideal fee for the one-time engagement. If you can't imagine making $25,000, that needs to be your number. If you can't imagine making $100,000, that needs to be your number, and really push yourself and then say it out loud. My fee is X. The value of this contract is X. My average contract value is X. Like, start saying it, because it's difficult when it's your first time saying that fee. And what I see speakers do is they'll say like, oh, it's 15,000. And then if they don't respond right away, it's like, but I'll negotiate. That does not need to happen. Like, you need to say the fee is the fee, boom. And then you can do what Ford said and take some things off. But if you are going to say a fee, if they can't pay that fee, you have to reduce the services that you provide. I'm
going to jump. Yeah, exactly. And I want to just clarify something before I lose the train of thought, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Not having been paid that fee doesn't make you not worth it. So I just need you to know, sometimes you're like, well, I don't have the confidence. So what I would tell you, if you're resistant to selling, here's what I would say. Forget selling. You're helping people. And if you really care, if you really do sincerely care about helping people, just remember, you're not selling, you're not switching hats, you're not going from an expert to a salesperson. You're just helping people. So I want you to really, think, how can I help more people today? And then when someone brings up a resistance, you go back to helping. Someone says, oh, that fee's too expensive. Well, I really like helping organizations build strong teams and be more inclusive, and, and that's why you have to know how to communicate your value, right? And then you have to understand who the benefits are for. If it's a CEO, they want to retain top talent. They want to build better teams. They want to have more productivity. They want to reduce turnover. You have to understand how to say those words to say, oh, your fee's too expensive. Go back to why they should do it. And you can also say, and as an added bonus, it helps you with your compliance. It helps you with your onboarding. It helps you with your training. And then you can toss in there. And if you'd like, you can also record it and you can use the replay. Well, that gives you a chance to add more value. So a lot of things we're talking about here, I think it's really important for your expert audience to realize that not having been paid doesn't mean you're not worth it.
No, not at all.
You haven't positioned it.
It means you have not positioned it. And don't undervalue the importance of time. I love the sales conversation, but one of the things that I've done, and that's worked, is I've said, okay, great. I understand your position now. Why don't you go back and check, and we have a call tomorrow about this? Give people time to make things work. It doesn't have to happen on the first call. You can give them time. You can have another call. They can go back and reevaluate, because people have departments, different budgets, different pockets of money, and those conversations can occur, but those conversations take time. And if someone really wants a deal to happen, especially, I've seen this with colleges all the time, but also now with companies not traveling as much, we've been able to dip into travel budgets to come out and do really good work for organizations and companies. So don't undervalue the time. You don't have to undersell yourself as your first response. That's the thing. And what Ford said is 100% true. Just because you haven't gotten it yet doesn't mean that's not the price, doesn't mean that's not worth it. So you can listen to this again. I'll keep this video up. People are like, I have to hop off, but I want to hear the rest. No, okay, so we're basically done now. I'm gonna let Ford tell you all where to find him, and we will do we'll have to do something else for it. We'll talk offline about what else we can do.
Well, you got the link to schedule me again, so if you want to schedule something, just go schedule it and I'll jump on with you, because I love helping people with this expertise. I love helping them take their expertise and monetize it. What I would say to everybody is connect with me on LinkedIn. Just go to LinkedIn, Google my name, connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can say, hey, I was on the show with Ashley or whatever. And even if you don't, I'm pretty selective. I'll look to make sure it's not a fake profile or anything. But just connect with me on LinkedIn. If you want to actually talk to me, talkwithford.com. It's not public, so I always know anybody who uses that was either on a podcast or at one of my public events. So talkwithford.com, which you just put up again in the scroller at the bottom. So that's all I have. It's been a pleasure working with you and your listeners and viewers today. I'd love to do another one. And here's why, Ashley. If you would have not had been the real deal, I would have got out of here in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I would have said, you know what? It's been really fun, but I got a phone call. It's like that blind date. Hey, my phone's ringing.
Right, exactly.
But I know you're the real deal, and I'm going to give you the testimonial that you deserve. Look, ladies and gentlemen who are watching this, look, she's the real deal. Listen to her language. She knows what she's talking about. She does know how to help people. And we've just both given you $1 million worth of advice. If you really go back and watch this and pause the recording and take notes, we're responsible to you, not for you. My gift to you is I want you to take action and then let me know how it works. But that's all I got.
That was so good. No, this conversation was really good. And you all know how the conversations just flow when we have someone amazing and dynamic on. So I'm so excited about that. You all can definitely listen to the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast anytime. And if you're interested in learning more about working with us, just go to ashleynicolekirkwood.com/apply and you'll learn about our group program that actually kicks off January 19th, 2021. But you can apply as long as we keep the application open, you can apply. So if you're interested, just go to ashleynicolekirkwood.com/apply. But Ford, you've been amazing, amazing, amazing. I love these types of conversations. So I'm so glad that it went the direction that it did. The value was immense. But thank you so much for being on the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast. And thank you guys so much for listening to the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast as well. And I will talk to you guys next time.